Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Development Podcast. I am joined today by Tom Ryan, the founder of Bigly Sales. Tom, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me, David.
Oh, man. Blessed to be here, and thank you for coming on. Bigly Sales promises a lot of amazing features. Tom, how did you get into this, and what brought you to starting Bigly Sales?
So my background was in the staffing industry, and I grew up in that industry. I worked in it my whole life, and there was a lot of issues that I saw that made me want to start working on the technology side of things. So I built out some of these tools internally for our business. We'd built out an internal CRM. I actually got involved in a project like that at a company I was working at back in the 2000s. They pulled me onto the team that was working on the CRM there, and I started seeing how these things were built and, some of the processes around doing that. And, lo and behold, about 20 years later, I decided to build my own thing in that space. So I'd been involved with sales my whole life and dealing with salespeople and call centers and seeing all of seeing the sausage making factory from the inside, right?
Yeah, and aware of the problem. So when you saw something that was broken or needed to be fixed, what was the initial genesis of fixing it?
So initially, the idea for Bigly was a CRM, where all of your texts, all of your phone calls, all of your emails, all of your data was stored in one place. And you could easily go in and find everything. Because the big problems I saw with the CRM is no one likes doing the data entry. And as a result, none of this stuff was making it into the system. What I found when we started pitching this to small businesses is most of them didn't want it. They weren't really interested in something like that. A lot of guys said, my value is me and me talking to folks, and I don't want to automate things. And, you talk to some of the guys and you say, well, what happens if one of your sales reps walks out the door? What happens to their data? And I would kind of get one of these, things like, you worry about your risk, we'll worry about ours, right?
Yeah.
Was, the response that we'd get most of the time. The guys would kind of be like, well, that wouldn't be good. But, that's just something we're going to live with. People weren't really ready to make that jump for the small businesses. And then we saw a lot of larger businesses that would use some of the tools that we built. Right. So we were sending a couple million text messages a month on people's behalf. And then I saw all the issues with this stuff. A lot of folks that would say, we're going to send this offshore, right? So now you had some guy text you. It's like the offshore call center thing, right? Except you're getting a text now that's broken English, and they'd send out 20,000 texts. They'd respond to some guys a week later. So a guy sends you a text, you respond to him 3 minutes later, and then he gets back to you in a week and a half, right? It doesn't work well. And we're looking at ways to fix these communication issues that we were seeing. And then AI kind of sprang up, and I saw the capabilities, and I said, this fixes every issue that we're seeing. The slow response rate, the broken English, the poor communications, we can fix all of these things with AI.
Okay, AI stitches it together. Okay, so I'm just curious, when you went originally to them and said, your salesperson is out there doing all these things, and then they walk out the door, and all the knowledge and everything that they were doing walks out the door, and they kind of looked at you and said, this doesn't matter?
I mean, I can tell you they weren't that interested in it for the small businesses. And if we started going to bigger businesses, they had something in place already. So if someone had just spent $1 million putting in Salesforce, they really weren't that interested in switching. Whatever tool we had, they said, we can probably do this in Salesforce already, or we can probably do this in HubSpot already. And then the smaller companies that hadn't put this stuff in, generally the response that we got was, yeah, I don't really think we need that, or I think we're okay on our own, or we'll just stick with our sheets of paper on our desk. The ones who hadn't made that move yet just weren't that interested in the technology. And they didn't like dealing with the CRMs. For whatever reason, we weren't getting a very positive response.
Hmm.
So, anyway,
And then
we pivoted.
you went back to the drawing board, and then you said that they would outsource a lot of this, and that again was not a successful process because of the delays and things like that.
They would have certain
Yeah,
amounts of success with it, or they wouldn't have been doing it, right?
yeah,
So they were having some success, but the success was so much lower than it should have been, that we're looking at people using this and they would send out message. The one that killed me is they'd send out a text and they wouldn't get back to people for like a week, right? A
yeah.
guy would respond back 5 minutes later and they wouldn't respond back to the person for a week. I didn't see it. I missed it. It was after hours. My team had gone home already, right? So there
Sure.
was all these communication issues that were happening, which we said there's got to be a way to automate this stuff. So we were looking at automating autoresponders, and drip campaigns and all these other things. And then we saw what ChatGPT was doing, and we actually applied to get that API. And we're in the first group where it came out, right? We were literally the first ones to get it after it was released to the general public. And then it was the same thing. We were in the beta group for Claude as that came out to be able to use that tech.
Nice. Okay. And then how did that leap, get you to where it started to stitch together and now it works well? What changed where you could sort of bring it together to increase that response?
Well,
Yeah.
the big things are, what does the AI do? One, it can answer everything instantly. Two, with the written word, it's flawless in pretty much every language on earth right out of the box.
Mhm.
Right. So we had it, we
Wow.
were trying it in Hindi, we were trying it in Urdu, we were trying it in Arabic, we were trying it in French, we were trying it in Spanish. It works in all of them. Right. So with the written word, it just, like that, it just picks it up and it responds back. And I have some team members all over the world. So, we have native speakers and they're like, yeah, this is native Portuguese. This is, native Spanish. This is native Hindi, right?
Huh.
This is, it literally is almost perfect out of the box, even better than most translation softwares will be because it understands context as well.
Mhm. And
So
if I'm, yeah, go ahead.
no, I mean, so that's
No.
the thing. We can make it answer instantaneously. So we feed it into the API. We actually put a lag on it. We put a lag of about a minute on there just so it doesn't feel like it's a computer answering you back.
Okay. Yeah. Throw a few typos in there, just,
We just slow it down a little bit. I mean, because
Sure.
if you send something and all of a sudden 1 second later you get a response back and it's a paragraph long, you're like, what is this?
What was that? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so say I'm a customer, like put me in the before and after. Before you had applied all this technology to the problem, what was the customer experience like? And now what is it like as an example?
I mean, the customer experience I thought was pretty lousy for most of the clients we were seeing. That's why we were looking for a solution to begin
Yeah.
with, because we were dealing with these guys and we were saying we weren't seeing the results that we wanted, but most of it was human error, right? Most of it was, you have a sales team. There's some crazy stats on this. So you have a bunch of salespeople on this call.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with consumers, if you don't answer them within an hour, your close rate drops 95%,
Mhm.
95%. Those are the numbers if you don't get back to them within an hour. So we would see all these people use the software. They would get back 50 responses of guys going, I'm interested, I'm interested, I'm interested. And they don't get back to them for a week. They don't get back to them for 3 days. I know their close rate
Wow.
has just gone off a cliff, that their close rate is going to be down 98, 99%. And then they're saying, well, I don't think the tech is working. It's like, no, the tech works fine. You're not working, right? It's,
Yeah. Or
you
they're on
can't,
an airplane or something. They just
whatever. I
you
mean,
can't.
it comes in at 5:02 and,
Right.
the last guy has walked out the door at 4:59 and, they don't get back to him for 24 hours or for, 18
Sure.
hours or whatever it is. So there were so many of those things that we would see happening where people are responding back, they're saying they're interested, and they weren't responding back to them for, again, a day, 2 days, 3 days, and they were losing these deals because of it. And we're saying, there's got to be a way we can improve this. So that was the big thing.
Yeah.
That was the thing that got us on AI. And then I always thought the Holy Grail was being able to do this as a phone call as well, because the phone is the highest intent. If someone actually picks up the phone and calls you, I don't know how much you know about pay-per call and stuff like that, but the
Yeah.
intent is through the roof if they're picking up the phone calling you. I'm not going to pick up the phone and call someone unless I'm really interested. I might fill out a form. You get a form, it could be a bot, it could be, yeah, I was kind of thinking about it. Someone's picking up the phone and calling you, they're pretty interested.
Yeah.
So we know that's the highest intent stuff. And what we did is we went from the written word to the spoken word, where now someone can call, we can say, hi, this is, Cindy, this is Mary. How can I help you? What questions do you have? We can answer any questions, and then we can walk them through a process. Any qualifying questions we can get answered, intake questions we can get answered,
Okay.
right? We can walk them through a Medicare form. We can walk them through a life insurance quote. We can walk them through any of these uh, types of things. I mean, home service is a beautiful use case because you're not asking a lot of questions. It's, where do you live? Do you own the house? Okay, we're going to have someone out there. Our first available appointment's tomorrow, 10 a.m. Does that work for you? And, bang, bang, we're done.
Holy cow.
So,
Okay.
that's just a beautiful use case for it. But we're talking to a couple huge, insurance companies right now that are signing on board. We just signed up, a division of a PE firm that is a $60 billion PE firm. So we're signing up some very large companies that are interested in this. And what I see happening is that entire call center, at least 90% of it's gone in the next 3 years. I
Wow.
mean, it's
Okay.
all going to be replaced
That's
by AI,
crazy.
and it should be. I
And it
mean,
works. It works to the point where you've got these big companies that are trusting the technology, you know, because they've got millions of dollars at stake.
yeah, and well, for the big companies, we can save them about 90% on their cost side,
Gee.
and this will be more effective than people, because you can train it and get it to a certain level. And now, I mean, I don't know how much you've done with call centers, but they're a revolving door. I mean,
Yeah.
any call center that I've ever seen anywhere has a staffing problem. They can't get the people in the door fast enough. They can't train them fast enough. Um, and because of all that turnover, for a lot of the places, it's kind of a dead end job. A lot of the guys, the pay isn't that great. If we're talking about something where even if at some of these companies where you've guys making 500,000 a year, it's usually there's a handful of guys who are making a ton of money, and then 80-90% of the floor is making kind of the base or pretty close to the base. And they're pointing to these guys and saying, you can do this too if you succeed. But most of the folks never get there, and they're out the door in 3 months, they're out the door in 6 months. So it's a tough job everywhere. I mean, everywhere. It's unbelievably hard job.
Yeah.
So to be able to say, but if you're talking about one of these things where it's like, a direct TV or a Comcast or one of these things
Oh,
where you're calling into the place, those guys are getting paid their 10, 12 bucks an hour. They're getting a little bit of bonus if they close a few deals. Maybe they're making an extra 100 or 200 bucks a week. But there's really no room for advancement. They're not going to work their way up to be the president of DirecTV from there. They're not going to be the VP. I mean,
hmm.
it's one of these places where there's really no room for advancement, and the job satisfaction is in the bottom 2% of all careers in the US, right? Statistically, people would rather clean toilets than do that job.
Geez. Okay. And so two things. One is, isn't most of that work outsourced to overseas right now?
A lot of it. There's about 3 million of those jobs in the US, and there's another 15 million or so globally.
Got it. Okay. And then what do you
And
do?
but if you're talking about the
Yeah.
overseas guys, now you got all sorts of other problems.
Sure.
You have huge language problems, number one, right? That
Yes.
they
Yeah.
don't
We've all
understand what
been
you're
there.
saying. You don't understand what they are saying. I
Yeah.
mean, and the customer, and then your customers hate it, right?
Yeah.
No one wants to talk to, I love my Indian guys. I love my Pakistani guys. I think they're great. I don't have a problem with them. Technically they're wonderful. I don't want to talk to them when I'm having a customer support issue because there's a language issue and you can't see what they're saying. They can't see you. And
Mhm.
it's the communication is just difficult. And, some guy calling from the Midwest, you know, they all hate it. They
Yeah.
absolutely hate it.
Completely. And so this use case. This is just one of the things that you can do, right? But this is for inbound calls that are coming in.
Yep.
Is that correct? And then just from a sales perspective, do you ever turn around and go outbound and
Yeah,
start
we can
cold
do
calling?
outbound. No,
Okay.
we can't do cold calling, right? So we got to be
Okay.
TCPA compliant.
Okay.
This would be considered a robocall if we were just to call someone randomly. But if
Mhm.
someone fills out a form on Facebook or someone fills out a form on TikTok or on Google or
Yeah.
one of these places, we can absolutely have the AI reach out to them. And again, do it 24/7, 365. We can do it in different languages. We can
That's
do it
amazing.
in English and Spanish and French and German and Portuguese. And, like you pick the language, we can have the AI talk to them in that language.
Okay. And what you're saying is if I'm getting this call, there's literally no difference between a live person and the AI calling and having this conversation with me. I mean, or are we 90% there? Are we, 95? How close are we to that parity?
So it depends what you're talking about, right? For
Mhm.
the go back and forth kind of thing, if you have a great customer sales rep who does great work, who does the high end escalation type calls, you're never really going to want to replace that person, right? You're just going to need a lot less of those people. Maybe in 5 years we'll be there, in 3 years we'll be there where it's just better than everyone, right? But we're not there yet. What it's really good at
Holy cow.
is, if I have information, I can put my entire company documents in there. If I have 100 pages of marketing material, I can put all the company information in and have it regurgitate that information. If I have technical questions, it's unbelievable with technical questions for support type things. It's unbelievable. So, like the stuff where most people have trouble coming in, could you imagine, you're in Guatemala or you're in the Philippines, and now you got to do customer support for Comcast
Yeah.
and you have to figure out the entire technical thing of how everything works in a different language and then be able to explain that to people. Well, the AI is phenomenal at that sort of thing. The technical stuff, you can give it 100,000 pages of documentation and we use something called a RAG system. It's a retrieval system where it can go and find the appropriate thing in that, using that retrieval system out of those 100 pages of documentation. So you can give it
Amazing.
vast amounts of data. We use a vector database, we use a RAG system, and then we go and we grab the appropriate thing, and the AI is going to spit it out, and it's going to spit it out verbatim, right? You're never
Wow.
going to get that from a customer service rep coming in. So a technical use case, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
As far as scheduling and stuff like that, it's not as good as the back and forth. That's where it's still a little clunkier than I would like right now in general. And we have to tell it not to do annoying things, right? Like don't apologize. Assume that when someone calls, I can tell that I have
Yeah.
the 4 rules that I just gave to the people. Don't repeat, right? It's don't repeat, don't apologize, don't ask permission,
Mhm.
and don't verify. Those are my 4 rules that we give it. And then you have to play games with it to try to get it to do those rules, and you got to split it up. And we really have a bunch of different functions. So first you're going to do the, introduction function. Okay. And then we're going to do the qualification function. Then we're going to do the intake function. And then we're going to do, the scheduling function or the payment function or whatever. And we run it through each function one at a time. So, I mean, there's a lot of engineering that goes into this on the back end to make it work right.
you have to teach it. And then, but once you do, then it's set and you just have to apply it. So just
And
change.
then it just keeps getting
Yeah.
better. And every time you find an edge
Yeah.
case, something
Wow.
it's doing wrong, you improve it. So it's like if
Yeah.
every time, if you had 1,000 guys in your call center, you could say, hey, we found one person doing this thing wrong on this one call. Now we're going to improve it for 1,000 people at once, and everyone's going to remember it and do it right.
Yeah. Versus the guy quits and walks out the door and you can't get that loop of information.
Yeah, the
So
training, constantly
the
training, having new
training,
training every
yeah,
day, every
the
week, teaching the same
interviewing.
people over and over and over and over.
Yeah. So a question, just switching gears a little bit. I saw a post today where this robot was folding clothes, and they're just like, this guy he's doing basically your housework for you. What do you do with all the millions of people who once did this job? And even if they hated it and it stunk and everything, it was, what are we going to do with all the people? Yeah.
So again, with the call center stuff, I think I'm doing the world a favor for
Okay.
two reasons. One, it's literally the least satisfying job on earth, statistically, one of them, right? One of the least satisfying jobs on earth for people. But I'm also going to give Americans 10 billion hours a year back of their time, right? You're going to get 10 billion hours a year back of time that was wasted on hold, repeating yourself, right? Wanting to throw your computer out the window or beat your head against the wall, that
Wow.
you're going to get back. So I think I'm adding a huge value to society and giving people their time back where you don't have to do something you hate. And right now, statistically, 30% of Americans would rather go to the dentist, shave their head, or do their taxes than actually call customer support because the experience is so painful. So,
Okay.
you know,
Wow.
to answer the real question that you asked, I think people are going to find other things to do. So if you go back 200 years, everyone worked on the farm. Everyone, right? There was a handful of lawyers and a handful of doctors and, a smidgen of other professions, but the vast majority of workers were on the farm. And if you said to them, robots are going to come in and are going to, do all the picking for you and till the fields for you, and you don't need to do it by hand anymore, people would have said, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. None of us are going to have jobs. What are we going to do? Right? Well, guess what? We have a
Luddites.
4% unemployment rate right now, and then the same thing
Wow.
with the Luddites, all these people with the machines, right? What are we going to do? Well, the manufacturing era came along, the assembly line, and all the people who were working, doing manufacturing, they left and they started doing service jobs. So I'm sure there will be more jobs. I'm sure there will be other things that people do that are hopefully higher level, that are more
Sure.
fulfilling, that are better,
Yeah.
that we can, give some of these roles that are mundane, tedious, mind numbing, soul crushing over to technology to do and let people do things that are much more fulfilling. And that's what I see happening. I can't tell you exactly what those jobs are going to be, but I do know that we've gone through these revolutions multiple times in the past, and we have a 4% unemployment rate right now. So I think the economics will work itself out.
Yep. It's more of an evolution than an extinction, let's say.
Exactly.
And you never know what is going to be the job, in the future. The human ability to create and add value is infinite,
Yeah.
So I agree. This is okay. So you've got these big deals coming in. Bigly sales is going through the roof. How if I'm out there and I'm listening to this, what is the next step to get with you and see if this might be something that we need?
Go to biglysales.com. But if, there's two things that we're helping with.
Okay.
The calls and the text messages are, our big thing. But also, if you need data, we provide the data along with it. So if you want to understand who your customers are, if you want to come up with marketing campaigns to reach those people, one of the nice things is we have just an unbelievable collection of data from what we've been doing.
Hmm.
And, we can help out with providing that data to you, helping you put together marketing campaigns for folks. And then, as those leads start flowing in, doing the outreach, or if you have a big call center, we'd love to hear from anyone. If you got 50, 100, 200 guys in your call center, 2,000 guys in your call center, we want to hear from you. We'll cut your costs. We'll improve your efficiency. And we can do it with zero risk. What we start with most people is we do after hours when they're going to be closed anyway, and those calls are going to be going dead. So if everyone leaves at 6 o'clock at night, well, we'll do, 6 p.m. to 8 a.m., right? And we can handle those calls for you. It was going to be a deal you lost anyway. Now we can do it for you at no risk. If you, have overflow hours where all of a sudden people are waiting on hold and you're dropping calls because they're on hold for 5 minutes, they're on hold for 10 minutes, right? We can handle those overflow calls for you, right? So there's a lot of things we can do to do this with absolutely no risk. Make sure we're outperforming your current folks in the call center, because if we don't outperform, there's no value. Even though we're 90% less than the cost side, we need to actually outperform the current KPIs, to really add value. And then for a big company, the sky's the limit. We can add tens of millions of dollars of, to the bottom line.
It's a no-brainer. And if they call the number that's up here, is that going to be an AI? It says, "Would you like to speak with the AI?" So I just answered my own
that's
question.
going to be the AI. That's going to be the
Okay.
AI.
So that's a perfect way to test this and see
100%.
what you think. Yeah.
That's it. We wanted to get in front of people so you can talk to it, you can listen to it, and play around with it and see how it works and see if you think it's outperforming, what you have today.
Wow.
But,
all right, Tom, I'm going to try it. And this is amazing. I'm excited for the future and a little bit worried, about all these technological changes, but very excited for the future, excited for what you're working on. And I appreciate you coming on the show and telling us about it.
And can I leave a final thought for the audience?
Sure.
If you haven't played around with the AI yet, go to ChatGPT or go to Claude and start asking it to do stuff for you. Ask it a question you have, right? Especially a technical question. If you need help on your computer, if you need help with something, go use it. This is like using Google. You don't need to be an engineer to use this stuff. So start learning it, start playing with it. You're going to be doing yourself a huge favor. The capabilities are really just unbelievable for so many different things.
Completely agree. It's been a complete game changer for me, and I would highly recommend that. I highly recommend everybody give you a call or the AI at Bigly Sales. Thanks, Tom.
Hey, David, thank you so much.